Whew. Okay, mic check. Looks good. So it's the Sunday after the election, and I wanted to see how the California props kind of shook out. Um, I've heard about a few, and I kind of know what's going on there, but I wanted to check them all out and see what's up. Um, on the right here, I actually have kind of what I voted, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to remember it, but I got it just in case. So first up is Prop 14. So Prop 14 issues a $5.5 billion bond for state stem cell research. I voted no, um, just because I don't believe that the state should be funding stem cell research. It should be the federal government, because it's going to be useful. It's going to be used everywhere. I'm all for stem cell research. I just don't think it should be a single state or a few states' financial burden versus the number of people it's actually going to help. Um, Personally voted no. They don't have the results here, so we'll just click in, see what's up. Um, Everything's reported in, so it looks like it's going to be a yes. And so $5.5 billion. California's going to have to find the money somewhere. So that's that. Kind of a bummer, in my personal opinion. Next up, Prop 15 requires commercial industrial properties to be taxed based on market value. Um, I'll see how that passed or didn't pass. Um, it didn't pass. Looks like we ended up saying no. So, so it was supposed to basically just tax commercial and industrial properties, except those zoned for agriculture, based on their market value rather than their purchase price. The reason for this is because these properties could have been purchased, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago or whatever. And maybe the property was only worth like $100,000 back then. And so basically, people who own them are paying what the value of it is back then. Um, and maybe the property now is in like a prime real estate location, and it's now worth, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. Let's say $5 million now, and so now you're paying like 10. You're paying as if the value of the property is only $100,000 when in actuality it's like $5 million. And this just seems kind of ridiculous that you can pay so little and then charge people market value to use your building. That's what's happening is they're getting market value for their buildings, but paying the purchase price or the taxes on the purchase price, from however long ago, which seems silly. Um, but apparently California didn't think so. I guess we're all just rich industrial commercial property owners. I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot of what was going on there. Um, but whatever. Less taxes is not always a bad thing. I just don't think it was a big issue here. I personally said, yeah, we should tax them because it would be more tax money from people who already have a leg up. And it wouldn't even be that much, honestly. The next one, Prop 16, repeals Proposition 209. This is affirmative action. This is right there, yeah. What did I do? I believe I voted. Yeah, I voted yes on affirmative action. Because there, the thing with affirmative action is, um, well, I don't. Well, I think it's kind of ridiculous that someone would be hired just because they're like, oh yeah, we got a quota. We need 10 black people because we have so many, white and Asian people, and we need to make sure that it equals whatever value, and we're checking that box. But in some industries and in some places, you kind of need it um, because people want to say, "Oh yeah, they hire the best candidate all the time." Um, I work. I've worked in a bunch of companies. There's a ton of nepotism. It's a ton of like, "Oh, I just hire more people that look like me because we have some sort of understanding, or I feel like we have some sort of understanding that would be um, more comfortable for me." And so but then they go, "Oh yeah, no, they were just the best candidate, of course." And sometimes it feels like you kind of like have to force it in because you can't trust people to just be objective. And that's why I personally voted yes, but it looks like we're not going to do it. We're going to continue to do this. Whatever. Um, it personally, as far as I can tell, hasn't affected me too detrimentally. I'm great at marketing myself, and I got people in places that can help me get to where I'm trying to go, which isn't like everyone else, which kind of sucks. Prop 17, suffrage, so voting rights, restores the right to vote to people convicted of felonies who are on parole. Basically, like, hey, look, you did the time, you're out, you should be allowed to vote. I said, yeah, absolutely. More people voting is always good. It's more of a representative of our own democracy and beliefs. Some people will argue that like, oh, you're a criminal, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Um, that's kind of ridiculous. It's not like these criminals are gonna, outvote us if they're like, yeah, we want to just make murder legal because like I did murder and I'd like to do more of that. Because it wouldn't fly in general society. But just because you've done a crime doesn't mean that you're incapable of thinking properly or even having your own opinions, and you should be able to voice them. So I voted yes on this to restore their rights, because it shouldn't be a big thing. It shouldn't be like a whole rigmarole. You got to do a billion different things in order to get your right to vote back. Then there's Prop 18. It allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 at the time of the next general election to vote in the primaries and special elections. Um, it's a small number of people. And the fact that we voted yes to restore some voting rights, but then no to kind of like not allow more people to vote seems kind of like ass backwards and ridiculous. Um, I guess some people don't see it that way. They think, oh, you know what? You're 17. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. Boom. There you go. This is where we want to draw the line because I had to wait till I was 18, so do you, or some BS like that. But more people voting is always good. It's more representative. Um, Prop 19, taxes, inheritance rules. Let's see. I voted no. Um, and basically, this just allows older people, to dodge like paying taxes when they move. Um, what's it called? But I mean, I understand they also they what they did was they lumped in a bunch of other like groups in order to kind of get this to pass. Because they said, oh yeah, people, victims of the fire, people with disabilities, people that you would obviously want to have this ability. But then they also said, yeah, just anyone also over 55. Like, um, it sucks. It sucks that they would do it that way because they lumped in a bunch of other people who should get those kind of tax benefits because they're in like more difficult positions. But then they also said, anyone who's 55 or older, they all get those kind of tax breaks essentially. Good and bad. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to check if that passed because there's no result right there. Pop it back open. Yeah, totally passed. Good and bad. Good and bad. Next up, Prop 20 for law enforcement. makes changes to policies related to criminal sentencing and in it collection. I believe this was like a harder on crime type law, which would like take things that were previously misdemeanors and make them felonies, and basically like putting more people in jail, which seems kind of ridiculous. And if we were considering them misdemeanors before, why would we upgrade them? If we already thought they were small issues, like why would we upgrade them? I think from my own memory, it was something like changing the threshold for like if an item is stolen, how expensive that item can be, and then lowering it. Um, yeah, I don't know where exactly it is, but it honestly seemed kind of ridiculous. So I voted no. Yeah, see. Add crimes to the list of violent felonies for early parole is restricted. Recategorizes certain types of theft and fraud crimes as wobblers. Um, Basically, you can kind of decide whether or not they're felonies. Um, and it, it's bad all around. There's better ways to deal with crime than to just throw more people in jail. Prop 21 is housing. It allows more rent control. From my own personal feelings, rent control is good because sometimes places get a little out of hand in terms of how much things are worth and then asking market value to rent them. But apparently, California is filled with homeowners. I guess more people here own homes than not because we did not pass rent control by like a lot. Um, Whatever, dude. I'm in a fortunate position where I'm not subject to rent. But if that's how people feel, that's how people feel. I think there should be rent control. Prop 22. Okay, this is the biggest scam in the fucking universe. And the fact that it passed is just absolutely insane to me. Prop 22 basically just carves out a little exemption for like app based bullshits like Uber, Lyft, and then like DoorDash and shit. Basically being able to keep them independent contractor. Basically they say independent contractor, but what they really mean is exempt from labor laws. It's a way to get around labor laws and having to actually give the people that make money for your company fair compensation. And I think it's somewhere else here. We can see how much they actually spent on this. It was like some ridiculous number. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Prop 22 in support. So the yes. 202, almost $203 million to vote yes, which is like crazy. So all these apps got together and built this big ass war chest to vote yes, to essentially deny their drivers, their rights. Deny them protection with labor laws. Give them a little exemption so they don't have to actually treat their drivers right. And it's crazy. $203 million is an insane amount of money. And the crazy part is one of the arguments that they were using for Prop 22 is like, hey, this is going to cost us Uber, or hey, it's going to cost us Lyft like way too much money. We can't actually afford to do that. But we can also give millions and millions of dollars to make sure that people are denied their labor rights. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And I happened to glance at the TV once and I saw an ad, and the ad essentially went, hey, vote yes on Prop 22 because if you don't, drunk drivers are going to kill you on the road. Because taxis for some reason just don't exist. There's no other alternatives, and it's such a clusterfuck. And then they also spam their own like drivers apps, with, hey, you're not going to be allowed to drive with us if this doesn't pass, so you have to vote yes. It was like just a ton of scare tactics, and so many people fell for it. Um, I think one of the big ones was like, hey, you're not going to be able to set your own hours and be independent and, drive for us. And the fact of the matter is, like, for the most part, an employer can let an employee pick their own hours. Um, but they were telling them you wouldn't be allowed to anymore, or they were even threatening to like pull out of California. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna deny yourself all that money. I think California is one of their largest revenue resources. Like, lots of people here use fucking Uber everywhere. Next one, Prop 23, healthcare requires a physician or basically just, someone who should have been there already to be on site at dialysis clinics. I voted yes because it just makes sense. Of course, you would want someone that can actually do like medical shit to oversee what feels to me like a medical procedure, dialysis. But this was another one like Prop 22, where the companies that would stand to lose a couple of dollars like lobbied hard against it. Here it is. Look at that. So like DaVita plus some other smaller companies, but DaVita I think does like some ridiculous. They're like majority of all dialysis clinics are DaVita. In fact, there's a DaVita like down the street from my house. They spent $105 million to avoid this, and that's nuts. And people fell for it again. Like, why wouldn't you want medical staff on site for what's pretty much like a medical procedure? Oh, and would also a medical procedure and also allow, California to kind of say, hey, you can't just be closing all of these dialysis clinics just because they don't make as much money as other clinics, because it also creates like an insane burden on people who have those clinics closed on them, having to figure out what's the next clinic, what's the closest clinic, and then having to arrange transportation there. Which, I feel like if you spend enough money in California, you can get whatever law passed. Oh, back to Prop 22. I wonder if it's mentioned here. Da, 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 da. In order to get rid of Prop 22, it requires a 7/8 vote in the Chamber of California legislature. 7/8, almost 87.5%, but 7/8, that's insane. That's so many people. It's basically impossible. And why would you need that provision in there unless you thought that if you somehow snuck it in, people would want to get rid of it? So let's make it difficult to do so. But yeah, that's a tangent. Prop 22 was the biggest failure of California voters, but whatever. Prop 24, California Consumer Protections Privacy Act. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I voted in line with this. I wasn't exactly happy to, but I did it anyway. And then Prop 25 replaces cash bail with risk assessment for suspects awaiting trial. Cash bail is a scam. The fact that basically they just set a number and say, hey, if you got this money, you can go home today. No problem. And I understand how bail works, but like this disproportionately affects the poor because those people are the ones who aren't going to be able to put together $10,000 to make bail so they can continue to go to work. And so, I know the risk-based assessment is going to be, it's going to be a little annoying because there's always going to be like the bias of the judge and things like that we'd have to contend with. But the fact that you basically say, hey, if you're poor, sucks to be you, you're just going to have to stay in jail till your trial is a travesty. it's awful. And the fact that we just decided, yeah, no, dude, let's keep cash bail in place. Fuck the poor is ludicrous. Um, California likes to pretend they're woke, but honestly, dude, a lot of the rich people here in California just like couldn't give two shits about anyone else. And this is one of the things. I mean, I'm sure there was also some lobbying from, the whole bail bondsman group or whatever they want to call themselves. Yeah, in fact, let's go see that. Um, yeah, it was just fairly even, but yeah, dude. Basically, this leaves a lot of poor people in jail awaiting trial, which, if you're not a flight risk, that's the whole point of a risk assessment. Like, why should you have to stay in jail? Um, but yeah, dude, not great. Um, yeah, this is it. This is what we're doing. California doesn't care enough to actually do their research. Doesn't care about the poor. Um, doesn't actually care about voting rights because for some reason they're willing to give it to people who've committed crimes, but not a 17-year-old who's going to be 18 at the time of the general election. Um, Inheritance and tax transfers, just, essentially giving more tax breaks, but also not collecting any new taxes and also spending more money. California doesn't know what they're doing, dude. Honestly, I love this state. I love where I live, but sometimes we make some stupid mistakes. But yeah, that's how our propositions kind of shook out. I hope that somehow they're gonna figure out a way to get rid of Prop 22. Um, I really hope that they eventually reconsider this because this, disproportionately leaves the poor stuck in jail, unable to work. Um, you got to start caring about your fellow man, dude. You just really got to.